On March 10th of 2009, a 28-year-old man decided that that was the day he was going to absolutely snap. After writing a 4-page letter depicting what he's already done and has planned, what he would do next was absolutely shocking. This is Alabama's worst massacre. Hello, friend, and welcome to High Time Crime. My name's Joel, and on here I specialize in true crime and also spotting UFOs. Look! It's a UFO! Oh, no. It's just Jay Leno. But anyway, today we're going over a not so heavily covered case that is about a man who did something incredibly heinous and caused carnage across his city. Michael Kenneth West, or White, was born on September 19th of 1980 in Alabama to his mother Lisa Carol White and his father Randall West. His parents' marriage didn't last long at all, and they divorced while Michael was about 4 months old. For a while, Lisa would raise Michael by herself and with the help of her family, but eventually she would meet a guy named David McClendon. In 1985, Lisa and David would get married, and both her and Michael would take David's last name of McClendon. So that's how Michael had gotten his last name. But for a while, things were okay between Lisa and David. But by 1992, things would really sour out, and these two got divorced. Michael was about 11 to 12 at the time. After these two split, I believe Lisa had a lot of issues, and so Michael was then raised mostly by his Aunt Phyllis and Uncle James White. They lived in Samson, Alabama. While growing up, Michael was described as being a quiet and respectful child. The mayor of Samson at the time, a man named Clay King, had coached Michael in Little League Baseball and recalled that Michael was always very respectful, just a little quiet. Michael attended Samson schools, and it was stated that he was an A student that kept to himself, and that by the time he was in 12th grade, he would graduate in 1999 near the top of his class. Every single account that I can find of Michael depicts him as a nice, kind kid that had zero history of any trouble. But after graduating high school, Michael wanted to have a career in either law enforcement or the military. At first, he decided to try the military, and in mid-1999, after graduating, and at the age of 18, he enlisted into the United States Marine Corps, but he failed to make it through basic training. In October of that year, he was discharged for fraudulent entry because he failed to disclose to them that he had a chronic shoulder injury that led to his shoulder repeatedly dislocating during the training. Oh, and speaking of medical issues, at the beginning of last year, out of nowhere, literally right after the holidays, I woke up with this insane toothache. At first, it was just a dull throb in one molar, but by that evening, the pain was radiating through my whole jaw. The next morning, it got so bad, I could barely eat or talk without almost crying. That's when I realized I needed to see a dentist right away. And that's where the sponsor of today's video comes in. I used ZocDoc, which offers a free app and website that makes finding a doctor straightforward. You can search for and compare quality in-network doctors, select one that fits your needs, and book an appointment with just one click. They've got over 100,000 healthcare providers lined up, covering everything from mental health to dental, eye care to skin care, and more. You can filter for doctors who accept your insurance, are close to you, suit your specific medical requirements, and have great ratings from verified patients. You'll also see their available appointment times so you can pick what works for you and lock it in instantly. Plus, ZocDoc gets you in fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours, and sometimes even the same day. So no more excuses for skipping those doctor visits. Head to ZocDoc.com/hightimecrime to find and book a highly rated doctor today. It's that simple. Thank you again to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video. But coming back to, Michael's discharge letter stated that he needed to improve both his physical strength and his confidence, and that he didn't appear to be mentally sharp. From that time to 2003, I don't know exactly what Michael was doing, besides that at some point in time, he got a job in Geneva, Alabama, working at a local medical fabrication plant called Reliable Products. Now, in 2003, Michael was forced to resign from Reliable, or he got fired for an unknown reason. This really upset him. And right after this, he was hired as a police officer trainee in Sampson. This was a good new start for Michael, and him attempting to do something he wanted to do. But once again, he failed to complete the training course and the police academy. This was also because of physical requirements, and by September of 2003, Michael was discharged from the program. Not only this, but the city of Sampson billed Michael $227 for expenses that he had during his training. So Michael, now 23 years old, had failed to go down either of his dream paths, one being in the Marines and the other being a police officer. The next step for a depressed Michael was to most likely around this time, which was about late 2003 to 2005-ish, was to move back in with his mother. He lived with his aunt and uncle for a while, but in his 20s, he went back to his mother. After going back home, Michael began working with his mother at Pilgrim's Pride Poultry Plant in Enterprise, Alabama. In 2006, though, for some reason, both Michael and his mother, and I believe a bunch of other employees, were suspended. They all got together and filed a lawsuit against the company for suspending them, and I believe they were allowed to return back to their jobs. I really don't know exactly what happened there, but I do know that Michael did not return to Pilgrim's Pride. By 2007, he began working at a place called Kelly Foods, which was a sausage manufacturing plant. Michael would work there until 2009, and he even became a team leader. His supervisors described him as a reliable guy who was well-liked and normal. But at all of these places that Michael worked, he had problems with people or supervisors, and he didn't let go of problems. In fact, he held on to them, and in a very negative way. We'll get into that shortly. Michael, by the year 2009, was unmarried. He was 28 years old at the time and was once again living with his mother Lisa in Kinston, Alabama. This is a small town with, at the time, about 540 residents. Michael also didn't have a girlfriend and barely many, if any, friends. I can't find a single report of him having a partner anywhere, but people around their community did describe him as being polite but introverted, that once again he was a nice, quiet guy who stayed out of trouble. The only super close bond that Michael had was with his mother, and it was said that he was very protective of her. One of Michael's only hobbies was that of a gun hobby. He grew up in rural Alabama, and from a young age, he became very familiar with firearms. By adulthood, Michael had amassed several and a lot of ammunition. He would purchase ammo in bulk. Not only this, but Michael was secretly training himself with his guns and tactical and survival gear that he bought over time. He also bought a bunch of DVDs on how to survive gunfights, shooting at and from moving vehicles, and just about gunfights overall. Michael enjoyed target shooting, and neighbors would constantly hear guns going off, but this wasn't unusual or really anything alarming. What was alarming was that Michael wasn't just target shooting, but he was practicing. And he was practicing with gear and for something that he was planning. On Wednesday, March 4th of 2009, Michael decided to randomly quit his job at Kelly Foods. I don't know exactly what his schedule was, but I know that he worked a lot, and that day he just walked out and didn't return. His bosses said that was incredibly unlike him. A couple of days would go by, and on Sunday, March 8th of 2009, Michael's mother, Lisa, was suspended from her job at Pilgrim's Pride for some reason, but it was stated that she could return to work the week after that. However, Michael took this news very hard because of how much financial and emotional strain it would cause the two of them. Not only this, but Lisa's health wasn't the greatest, and this was weighing on Michael. On March 9th of 2009, Michael would buy more ammunition, and the next day, what he would do was absolutely sickening. On March 10th of 2009, Michael McClendon woke up with pure evil on his mind. I'm not sure exactly what time this happened, and in fact, this could have occurred the day before, but at some point in time, while Michael's mother Lisa was sleeping, he walked up to her and shot and killed her. Next, he decided to kill all 3 of their dogs, with the reason being that he couldn't leave them behind with no one to care for them. After doing this, he decided to write a 4-page letter that described basically everything in detail. It was never released fully, but some parts of it were, and we have an idea of what was said. Michael basically states that he had been putting off doing what he was about to do for quite a while, but his mama got suspended and that he was miserable for a long time and can't take it anymore. He stated that he killed his mother in her sleep and that he believes she was very sick with lung cancer. There is no proof or evidence Lisa ever had lung cancer, but Michael continued writing that his mother had suffered enough and that they were tired of getting no support from their family. That Lisa's side of the family, or the Whites, specifically did not help them in their time of need. Michael said that there was a family dispute that he was upset about involving a family Bible or heirloom, and he also said that some of the people that made them suffer will pay. An exact excerpt from the letter reads as follows: "Mama was very sick, had lung cancer, I think, so I put her out of her misery. She wanted to die with her dogs, and she did. I put the dogs to sleep as well. I couldn't leave the world not knowing what would happen to our dogs. Mama didn't know what hit her. I shot her while she was asleep. She never knew what hit her, nor did the dogs. I'm sorry, but Mama had suffered enough, and so have I. Some of the people who made us suffer will pay. I had planned to put this off for a while, but Mama got suspended today. Wasn't her fault. You know, Mama always worked hard. She said she didn't care and was relieved, and she was. I carried her to get some beer and walked around for a while outside. Mama loved it there. For me, I've been miserable for a long time and can't take it no more. Mama could have gotten on at Wayne Farms, but that would have finished her. I couldn't stand by and see that happen. Please forgive me, Michael." Also, Michael had a list of names of people in a spiral notebook in his room. It was split into 2 columns. On the left side, it had the names of coworkers or supervisors that Michael worked with, and on the right side, it had what he didn't like about them or why he was upset with them. This list also referenced Kelly Foods, Reliant or Reliable Metals, and Pilgrim's Pride as places that wronged Michael. Essentially, it was a list of people or places that Michael had grudges against. But after killing his mother and writing that letter, Michael decided to place his mother's body on the couch and put a bunch of stuff on top of her, and then set fire to the home. Next, he placed the letter he made into the mailbox and addressed it to a family member. After destroying his mother's home in Kinston, Michael, armed from head to toe with a Bushmaster XM15, a Soviet-style SKS carbine, a .38 caliber handgun, and a 12-gauge shotgun, decided it was time to continue. He had dozens of boxes of ammo and high-capacity magazines that I read were even taped together so he could reload quicker. Michael drove about 12 miles from his home in Kinston all the way to Sampson. Most of his extended family had lived there. Michael's first stop was to his aunt and uncle's home, or James and Phyllis White. James was Lisa's brother, and once again, these two helped raise Michael for a lot of his life. But Michael pulled up to their home on West Fulham Street, and on the front porch sat a bunch of his relatives and also a neighboring family. This was a typical thing for them to do, and they were all just enjoying the afternoon. Michael randomly pulled up and got out of the car with one of his guns and shot and killed his 55-year-old uncle, James White, his 34-year-old first cousin, Tracy Michelle Wise, James's daughter, his 15-year-old second cousin, Dean James Wise, Tracy's son, a 31-year-old neighbor named Andrea Dawn Myers, who was the wife of Deputy Sheriff Josh Myers, and her 18-month-old daughter, Corinne Gracie Myers. Michael also injured 4-month-old Ella Myers, who was also the daughter of Andrea and Deputy Myers. Michael's aunt Phyllis was also there, but luckily she was inside at the time and started hiding. One neighbor actually saw everything happen. She said that Michael ran up to the porch and started shooting, and then chased one of the women into the house, killing her. After killing all of these people, Michael then walked literally next door to his 74-year-old grandmother, Virginia White's home. And at the time, she was in the doorway, probably because of all of the commotion. Virginia was Lisa's mother. Michael saw her and shot and killed her. After committing this terrible act, Michael wasn't done, not at all. He got back into his car, a red Mitsubishi, and then drove through Sampson, firing shots at anyone he saw. 911 calls began pouring in as several people alerted the police that they had been shot at. Michael specifically went to Big Little Store gas station, which was on West Main Street, and this is where he killed a woman named Sonia Lolly Smith, who was 43 years old. She actually worked at the Reliable Metals, the company that Michael worked at previously, and she was just getting some gas and walked outside at the wrong time. Here's where also a man named Greg McCullough was pumping gas and shot by Michael, but he ended up being okay. He saw Michael pull up very fast and stop his car at a halt, and he thought it was a big prank until he saw a rifle appear out of nowhere. Michael then pulled out of there immediately and continued his horror. He randomly shot and killed a guy named James Irvin Starling, who was 24 years old and just trying to run away when he saw and heard Michael shooting. Michael shot James in the back while he was running away. He also killed another man named Bruce Wilson Malloy, who was 51 years old and was just driving through town when he was shot by Michael, who was driving next to him. Michael continued firing at anyone he could while he was just driving down the road. Eventually, police caught up to him and a high-speed chase thus began. Michael got onto Alabama Highway 52 from Sampson, and the time when his vehicle was spotted was 4:06 p.m. Michael fired at a state trooper who was in pursuit named Mike Gillis and put 7 rounds into the trooper's windshield. The trooper was injured by flying glass cutting his face, but regardless, he kept pursuit. And at the same time, Michael was firing at other police cars and a bunch of random stores they were passing, such as a Piggly Wiggly grocery store and a Walmart. Luckily, no one was injured in those places. But in front of that Walmart, which was actually close to Geneva, a police officer attempted a pit maneuver onto Michael and spun his car out. Michael responded by shooting a ton of shots, and it destroyed the police car. But the officer miraculously was basically uninjured. Michael managed to get out of there and thus began another chase by a ton of officers, one of those including Deputy Josh Myers, who just lost his wife and baby daughter on that porch. Deputy Myers had no idea that even happened yet, and he was just responding to the call to chase down Michael. Michael had a place in mind though, and once again he wanted to continue his rampage. He drove off of Highway 52 onto Maple Avenue in Geneva and pulled into the parking lot of Reliable Metal Products, the exact same factory that he worked at many years prior, and also a part of his revenge list. Right before pulling in, though, Geneva's police chief, Frankie Lindsay, tried to block Michael with his police car. Michael saw this and then shot the police chief in the shoulder, but Chief Lindsay did end up surviving. Michael continued through, and the time was about 4:17 p.m. when Michael was stopped and cornered by police. He got out of his vehicle near the loading dock and quickly entered the building, and in one final move, Michael decided to take himself out. He easily could have continued his rampage inside the building, but he didn't. Michael killed 10 innocent people and injured 6 others, and inside of his car, he still had hundreds of rounds of ammunition. He really could have killed even more people had he wanted to, and it's just sickening to think about. We know exactly why Michael killed everyone, including his own mother and family members. Nothing went right in his life, and instead of being a man about it and making things go right, he decided to do the most cowardly thing imaginable: murder innocent people, including an 18-month-old, and even shooting a 4-month-old and 3 dogs. Genuinely, it's such a heinous act that it's hard to wrap your head around or comprehend how evil some people can be. Michael, for a long time, had failed at everything he did. He failed to get into the Marines, failed to get into the police academy, failed at his jobs, and he decided to take it out on those who raised him and random people he never met. He was practicing and planning for months to years, and nobody knew. Everybody thought that he was a nice guy and normal, but then you figure out that he was everything but that. The people that Michael murdered deserve to be remembered, though. Corinne Gracie Myers was 18 months old and the daughter of Deputy Josh Myers and his wife, Andrea. Corinne was a bright-eyed toddler that had a smile that would take your breath away, and she was just a big ball of light and joy. Her father remembers Corinne as being the sweetest thing in the world, a little baby girl who loved to sing and dance and be held by her parents. Corinne, though only a year and a half old, touched so many lives with her innocent and cherished spirit. Her mother, Andrea Dawn Myers, was 31 years old and was known for her selflessness and love of family. Andrea was originally from Kansas and served as a volunteer firefighter before she moved to Sampson, Alabama in 2007 with her husband, Deputy Josh Myers. Andrea was a very devoted mother and wife, and a stay-at-home one at that. Together, the couple had 3 children. Andrea was known as a super mom and embraced community and faith well. She was an active member of Lime Springs United Methodist Church and loved every aspect of life, especially her children. Dean James Wise was 15 years old and a freshman at Sampson High School. There's not much information about him, but he was the only son of Tracy Wise and the second cousin of Michael. Dean was a very polite and warm-hearted kid who enjoyed the small-town life. His mother, Tracy Michelle Tater Wise White, was 34 years old and a first cousin to Michael. She was also a lifelong resident of Sampson. Tracy had graduated from the University of Alabama and originally was an assistant city clerk until she became a magistrate for the city of Sampson. Tracy had 1 child, her teenage son, and he was her pride and joy. A few years prior to this, Tracy fell ill and was no longer able to work, but she kept positive spirits and did what she could. Friends remember her as being such a nice person who would lend a hand wherever or whenever. James Irvin Starling was 24 years old and a retail employee who worked at a local Dollar General store. James had dreams of a big future, though, and in film. He was really big into movies and wanted to become a Hollywood producer one day. In high school, he was a good student and talented athlete, receiving A's and B's and playing on both the football and baseball teams. James was a family man and had gotten married 2 years prior at 22 to his wife, Elizabeth. They had been together a lot longer, though, and had 2 children. One of them was 5 and the other was 2. Elizabeth was also pregnant with their 3rd child. James was a very ambitious man who cared about providing for his family and wanted to live his creative dreams. Sonia Marie Lolly Smith was 43 years old and considered a friend to many in Sampson, and remembered as being a terrific mother and a very smart person. She was a loving wife and mother of two, one of them a college-aged daughter. Sonia was a very hardworking woman, and she had a generous soul. She always saw the need to help everyone, whether that be friends, family, coworkers, or just anyone she could. She was a loving wife and mother of two, one of them a college-aged daughter. Sonia was a very hard-working woman, and she had a generous soul. She always saw the need to help everyone, whether that be friends, family, coworkers, or just anyone she could. It was said that Sonia could have been anything she wanted to be, and that she was intelligent and caring. Sonia was a woman of faith and attended Shady Grove Assembly of God Church. She loved life. Bruce Wilson Malloy was 51 years old and considered beloved in Sampson. He was a free spirit and a former motorcycle repairman who was known for always having a smile on his face with a great story to tell. Bruce at the time worked as the head of maintenance and a welder for a peanut processing company and lived in Sampson for most of his life. During his free time, he enjoyed racing go-karts, and he did this specifically on Fridays. He would take his trailer out of town to go compete in events. Bruce was also a father to 2 daughters, and he had a son and 3 grandchildren. Bruce is remembered as being an upbeat, hardworking man who was always ready to lend a hand or share a laugh. Lisa Carol White McClendon was 52 years old and Michael's mother. She was a hardworking woman and employed at Pilgrim's Pride poultry plant for a very long time. Lisa grew up in Sampson and was a longtime member of Sellersville Assembly of God Church. She loved her faith. In her personal life, she loved to garden and was very passionate about the movie Gone with the Wind. She loved it so much that she had a bunch of memorabilia about the movie in her home. Lisa was also a very devoted mother and did as much as she could for Michael. She loved him very deeply and had wrote about it numerous times. James Alfred White was 55 years old and Michael's uncle and Lisa's brother. James was a well-respected figure in Sampson and had just recently retired as the city's superintendent. After retiring, James fell in love with gardening, and he was always seen tending to his vegetable patch in his yard and then sharing the produce with neighbors and friends. James adored his family and loved being a grandfather. He would frequently watch his grandchildren, and in the afternoons, he enjoyed sitting on the porch with family and friends. James was described as being the quintessential friendly Southern gentleman who waved at everyone driving by and was always ready to talk over a glass of iced tea. It was also stated that he would help anyone, no matter the situation. Virginia Et Wise White was 74 years old and the grandmother of Michael and mother of Lisa. Virginia was the beloved matriarch of the White family and a lifelong resident of the Sampson area. She was a homemaker and an ideal mother. She was known for devoting her life to raising her children and caring for family. Virginia was also a woman of deep faith, and she lived life as being a committed Christian. She was a longtime member of the Sellersville Assembly of God Church. Friends remembered her as being a very nice person who was really easygoing and just good-hearted. Even early into her 70s, Virginia remained young at heart and enjoyed activities like baking for her friends and family and going horseback riding and traveling all over. Virginia was a mother and grandmother to many. Rest in peace to all 10 innocent people who lost their lives on this awful day.